OK, we're breaking into that programme to bring you long-awaited news on the Gaza ceasefire, which is due to begin in the next half an hour or so. In the last few minutes, we've just heard from Prime Minister Netanyahu. He says that Israel will not begin the ceasefire at the agreed-upon time until there is a full list of captives released. Now, we've also heard from Hamas in the last few minutes. They say the delay in providing that list of hostages is due to technical reasons. Israeli forces have already been seen withdrawing from Rafah after carrying out attacks on western and northern parts of the city in the days leading up to the truce. Let's see if we can get any more on this. We can go to our correspondent, Stefanie Dekker. She's live for us in Amman because Israel's banned Al Jazeera from operating inside Israel. So we are hearing from both Hamas and from Prime Minister Netanyahu just in the last few minutes ahead of the beginning of this ceasefire. What are you hearing?
Yes, well, the Israeli Prime Minister had already alluded to this last night. Why? Because under the agreement, Hamas needs to give the name of the captives that it will release today. It should have done that 24 hours before the captives are released. So essentially yesterday. That hasn't happened. So now we have confirmation from the Israeli Prime Minister's office, basically telling the army, as you said, that the ceasefire will not go ahead, and that's due to start in the next 40 minutes or so, unless they get the names from Hamas. Now, Hamas, which was also quoted in Israeli media with sources, are now also giving a statement that this is due to technical reasons. What do technical reasons mean inside Gaza? Well, Hamas doesn't communicate with a phone call. Obviously, there are messengers. They are still very much aware of surveillance, even though under this agreement, Israel should stop surveillance for 12 hours so that Hamas can move the hostages inside Gaza to the border and hand them over. So where are we at now? It seems that those names still haven't been handed over. I think, putting this into context, there is so much international pressure on both sides that still it'll be very difficult to see how the ceasefire is not, particularly for the first phase, going to go ahead. Will there be some delays? Potentially at this point in time. I'm pretty sure that Qatar will be putting incredible pressure on Hamas if indeed these names haven't yet been handed over to do so. So this is where we're at, the 11th hour. I have to say, almost as usual when it comes to these kinds of things, both sides always blaming each other for the failings. But Hamas has reiterated it is committed to the ceasefire and that it will hand these names over as soon as they can. So, yes, we're going to have to wait and see whether that ceasefire is going to come into effect in the next half an hour, 40 minutes or so.
Steph, as you say, this is very much the 11th hour. There is so much hope, so much expectation of this ceasefire beginning, not just in Gaza, but also in Israel. Just talk us through the choreography. What were we expecting in the next half an hour or so?
Well, once that official time starts, then the fighting needs to stop. I mean, you mentioned there has already been some maneuvering of the Israeli army away from some of the urban areas inside Gaza. The Israeli army has told residents of the Gaza Strip, around the Gaza Strip, the Israelis, particularly like schools, for example, to start a bit later, just because they're concerned that there might be, for example, a barrage of rockets out of Gaza just in that half hour ahead of what we are expecting this ceasefire to take effect. What are we expecting if everything goes to plan? We are expecting 3 Israeli captives to be released today. We expect those to be women, and they are civilians, not soldiers. So you're probably expecting them to be over the age of 50 or children. Then you also have 95 Palestinian prisoners that will be released by the Israeli prison services. Most of these also women, most of them from the occupied West Bank. So later today, and I do expect this to be possibly late into the night, you will at some point, even though Israel is very, very keen to keep the cameras away from the captives, they want to debrief them, that will see movement, particularly also in the occupied West Bank. Palestinians welcoming back prisoners, even though Israel, again, has said they don't want to have scenes of jubilation, as they call it. They want to make sure that this is a very low-key affair. Of course, that's not going to be the case, and we've seen this in the past when there's been prisoner releases, whether it was the last short-term ceasefire, whether it was during prisoners' releases when they were negotiating a potential two-stage solution, and that's over 10 years ago, that there are massive scenes of joy. Because a lot of prisoners are held under administrative detention. That means with no charge, and that can be renewed eternally by Israel. So this is what we're going to expect to see today if everything goes to plan. So I think in the next half an hour, of course, we will know. Potentially there could be a delay, maybe for a couple of hours, who knows, maybe even tomorrow. But there's so much riding on this. I was actually reading one of the US news reports that Donald Trump is very keen for the Nobel Peace Prize. And this is, I think, not something that is out of the ordinary. This is a man who has a big ego, and this is a man who will be seen to want to be very much responsible for achieving something. Particularly, let's start with a successful ceasefire, and that's not just phase one. So there's a lot riding on this, a lot of international pressure that's different from before. So even analysts yesterday we were talking to, when there was this sort of feeling that the name still hadn't been released, people were telling me, we will be shocked if this ceasefire doesn't go ahead. There's just too much international pressure. Both sides will come to the table and do what's asked of them, even if the 11th hour has all this sort of back and forth.
OK, Stefanie, we'll leave it there for now. I just want to recap our breaking news this hour, if our viewers are just joining us. In the last few minutes, Israel has announced that the ceasefire is not going to begin without a list of captives due to be released. Hamas has also responded, saying the delay is in providing that list of hostages is because of technical reasons. Now, we don't actually know what technical reasons means. They have not explained themselves any further. In the last few days, we've seen evidence of Israeli forces withdrawing from parts of Gaza, from southern Gaza, from Rafah, though attacks have continued in other parts of the city, including western and northern parts of Gaza in the days leading up to today. Let's go back to Stefanie Dekker. So Hamas has not really explained, Stefanie, what they mean by these technical reasons of not providing the names, the list of hostages that are due to be released. Why is this such a priority, do you think, for the Israeli Prime Minister?
No, they have alluded to that. They said that it's because, Hamas doesn't communicate through normal measures, if you will, picking up the phone, because, of course, the reality in Gaza and the surveillance that goes on. So what they're saying is that this is due to the messenger system inside Gaza having some kind of there's some kind of an issue with it. This is according to Hamas. Now, under the agreement, it was, as we were just saying, Hamas needs to give the mediators, Qatar particularly in this case, the names of the captives that it will be releasing today. We have the list of captives, the 33 captives that will be released over the course of the first phase. That's 42 days. All of those names are out. It's who will be released today. We know there will be 3 women, and we know they're not soldiers. So for that, we can understand that they are over the ages of 50 or minors. So this is where we're at. And of course, the Israeli Prime Minister is saying, unless this isn't given to us, we're not going to go ahead. But there is so much international pressure riding on this that most people believe that it really would be shocking if this ceasefire at the 11th hour fails.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get latest news from Al Jazeera.